Happy New Year, ladies and motherfuckers, and welcome to the first Solid Stake show of 2017. Today we look at 2005's Ultimate Spider-Man for the original Xbox. Play that intro, bitch!
We have to take that step. What are we waiting for? It's now or never.
Now you may remember on the last episode we covered Spider-Man 2, and I'd really recommend you watch that as I'll be comparing this game back to that one quite a lot. For my YouTube viewers, you can click this annotation right here and go to watch that, or find a link in the description, and for my Vidme viewers, I'll have a link down in the description. But for those of you who don't want to watch that one first off, what the fuck is wrong with you? But to sum up my thoughts on Spider-Man 2, here's an excerpt from that review.
It definitely feels like they spent the majority of their time and budget crafting a really cool Spider-Man tech demo with awesome swinging mechanics and a fully realized New York, and then when they presented it to the publishers, they were asked if the game would be ready to launch alongside the movie next month. Then they proceeded to spend the next 2 weeks panicking and smashing Spider-Man plushies into their keyboards until they got something that passes as a video game.
So yeah, Spider-Man 2, while having good moments, really didn't age too well. Despite that, it's still regarded by most fans to be the best Spider-Man game we've got so far. And to that I have to say, why the fuck does nobody talk about Ultimate Spider-Man? Seriously, am I missing something? Was this just not marketed well? Did nobody play it? Or do people honestly think Spider-Man 2 was a better game? In my opinion, Ultimate Spider-Man is by far the superior game. Not only does Ultimate fix all my complaints, yes, all of them, that's not an exaggeration, but also improves upon what worked in Spider-Man 2 and adds a whole nother character to play as. Jesus, talk about stumbling upon a hidden gem! Let's talk about the first big improvement Treyarch made to Ultimate, the graphics. Oh yeah, Treyarch made these games, by the way. You know, the Black Ops guys. It's just a small little indie title, you probably never heard of it. Now I'm definitely someone who's in the camp of graphics don't matter, but despite that, I think we can all agree that they do help with a game's immersion and overall enjoyability. Models are a little smoother looking and textures are noticeably better. However, the cell shading is what really makes this game pop. If Wind Waker and Twilight Princess have taught us anything, it's that a cell-shaded art style tends to age far better than something taking a more realistic art direction. This applies to Ultimate Spider-Man tenfold, as its predecessor can look like a janky, low-poly mess at times. However, Ultimate is still a joy to look at nearly 12 years later. This art style was a perfect choice for Spider-Man. The whole game looks like a moving comic, like the cutscenes are actually moving comic books. It's really fucking cool. Spider-Man is also animated beautifully, spinning, twirling, and flipping after web swings, and bouncing around during combat. Overall, Ultimate just carries so much more life and style in its visuals. Speaking of life and style, the voice actors actually give a shit this time around. None of the cast from the Sam Raimi films returned this time around, which is fortunate as none of them seem to give a shit. Don't get me wrong, the acting was fucking hilarious, but it wasn't supposed to be, and getting a new cast was definitely the right call. Nobody's winning an Oscar for their performance here, but when I found the dialogue amusing this time around, it was actually for the right reasons. Spider-Man's actor can sound a little obnoxious at times, but Spidey's only 15 in this game, plus he's kinda supposed to be an obnoxious character anyway, so I can let that slide. I'd say Spider-Man 2 had a slightly better soundtrack, but in terms of presentation, that's really the only edge I can give it. Now I want to look at what my biggest complaint was with Spider-Man 2, the game structure. It's remained for the most part unchanged, with the only noteworthy difference being that every second or third mission you play as Venom. I really don't feel this is a problem this time around. The problem I had with Spider-Man 2's structure was more in the execution than the concept. Spider-Man being a superhero, it felt very natural for him to be helping out the citizens of New York to be a central part of the game. It's more so the amount and frequency of these micro missions in conjunction with the really bland main missions that made the game repetitive and monotonous. In Ultimate, they've drastically reduced the amount of micro missions required to progress, made them even faster to complete. You no longer have to talk to an NPC to start the mission. Instead, you just get a little red dot on your map and a subtle little audio cue, and the Maniac drivers actually put in a little fucking effort this time around. And thank fucking Christ that the main story missions are actually fucking good. Not the most variety I've ever seen in the genre, but they did about as much as they could without straying from the game's core mechanics. Races also returned from Spider-Man 2, and they're just as fun as ever. Yeah, I guess I kind of forgot to mention those last time. Now, my second biggest complaint with Spider-Man 2 is definitely the combat. Ultimate has completely thrown out Spider-Man 2's mechanics and come back with a much simpler and, honestly, way better one. Rather than the extensive list of combos and redundant special moves, you just get a punch, a kick, and web tie. It really goes to show that less really is more sometimes. Players are encouraged to switch between targets and alternate between punches and kicks. Fights are now a clever act of micromanaging your opponents and using your agility to take them all out. Enemies also need to be webbed up after they are defeated and will get back up if you fail to do so in time. This adds a nice sense of urgency to each encounter that its predecessor just didn't have. Might sound a little weird, but this game pretty much is Arkham Combat before Arkham made Arkham Combat a thing.
Oh, baby, a triple!
Bosses are, again, leagues better this time around. They actually have patterns that require memorizing and actually require tactics and thought. They're actually fucking fun this time around. Unfortunately, the final boss is one they recycled twice previously, and it's probably one of the weakest fights in the game. But it's still like 20 fucking times better than anything the previous game had to offer. Now what really matters in a Spider-Man game, the web swinging. If you fuck this up, you pretty much fuck up the entire game. So I'm pleased to say that the swinging is just as good as Spider-Man 2. In fact, I'll dare to say it's even better. Sure, they had to strip away a few things like having two web strands at once, but did anyone honestly use that? The first thing I noticed once I got my gross meaty mitts on this game was how much weightier the swinging in this game felt. Well, that and the fact that Spider-Man just hangs there like a limp noodle sometimes, but well, that's not important. Spider-Man feels like he carries a lot more momentum now, which makes all your inputs have a lot more feedback on screen. While the charge jump has been removed, the added double jump and rope climb are a more than suitable replacement. I actually think the combination of these two moves gives you far more control over your height and distance than the charge jump ever did. Wall climbing feels faster, and the wall run actually works on a consistent basis this time, and I cannot tell you how fucking happy that makes me. I do feel the double jump in combination with the web zip can make movement feel a little too easy and repetitive sometimes, but on the contrary, it keeps the game fast-paced, gives you a lot of mid-air control, and can help you clear buildings that you would have smacked your face into otherwise, so it's really a minor nitpick. I really cannot stress enough how good Ultimate Spider-Man's movement feels. To this day, I don't think any other game has replicated this sense of freedom Swing Around New York gives off. Even more so than its predecessor, Spider-Man is worth playing for its movement alone. Now, I could stop there and give this game the Cherry Dr. Pepper can of approval right here and now. But Greg, what the fuck do you think you're doing? We're not done yet, you fucking idiot. Put that back. Anyways, as I was saying, Greg, that would already be enough to sell the game on. However, Treyarch really went the extra mile and included a whole nother goddamn character. Do you want to know what the first thing they have you do once you get the hold of the reins on this new character? It's kind of boring, actually. You only eat a small child! Shit like that nowadays would get the game banned in Australia. But back in 2005, that was apparently suitable for 13-year-olds. No, I'm not hyping this up. That's how they teach you the feeding mechanic. Oh yeah, feeding on people is a central mechanic when playing as Venom. I know he spits them back out when he's done, but let's face it, they're fucking dead. He fucking assimilates them into his body, sucks their guts out through their fucking anus, then spits them out like a goddamn gross wad of gum. A gross, corpse-shaped wad of gum that is dead. Because he got eaten by Topher Grace wearing some bad CGI. It should come as no surprise that as Venom, you spend most of your time fucking shit up. Combat plays a much bigger role in Venom's missions. Thankfully, the combat is rather good. I'd say better than Spider-Man's even. There's a previously mentioned Vidme mechanic which is good for taking out single targets and regaining health. There's a tendril attack for long-range sweeping attacks, a claw attack for close-range high-damage attacks, and of course, grabbing and throwing cars. There's even a couple special moves that let Venom finish off the game's lesser enemies instantly and do great deals of damage to bosses. While definitely not as fully realized as Spider-Man's movement, the movement while playing as Venom is a blast in its own right. The camera work can get a little nauseating when jumping around, but I got used to it rather quickly. The speed and height at which Venom jumps is really impressive, and it only adds to the impression that Venom is an absolute monster. Venom's tendrils, in addition to combat, can be used for locomotion, allowing for faster horizontal movement and increased airborne mobility. Now, I spent a good chunk of time going over the game's pros, but let me address the game's main con. It's short. No, that's it. That's really the only complaint. The game only lasts 4 hours, but I'm not really going to complain about that too much. 1. I will always say that quality is far more important than quantity. And 2. There's a lot of side missions like races and combat tours for those who are looking to get more out of the game. You even unlock the ability to free roam as Venom once you beat the game, and he even comes with his own set of races and a rampage minigame. Really, I would have actually liked to spend far more time with this game than I did, but hey, this video wasn't going to make itself. With all that said, I think now we can give Ultimate Spider-Man the Cherry Dr. Pepper can of approval. See, Greg, it's not that hard when you just wait for your cue. Somehow Treyarch not only managed to greatly improve upon their previous work, but also introduce another playable character, and by some miracle, make them just as fun to play as. All while releasing the game only a year after Spider-Man 2? Drink up, buddy, this one's for you.
Hey guys, Solid Steak here. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Today's suggested video comes from a reviewer by the name of Unkown. This video is a Mass Effect 2 review that he was kind enough to give me a shout out at the end. Shout out at the end. Boy, that's a mouthful. So go check him out. It was a pretty good video. I had a good few funny moments, but he really gets into the sort of details on why it's a good game. So yeah, it was a really well put together video. On the bottom of, as always, there's, you know, episodes from Solid Steak's past, you know, tie to Automedia's, you know, previous Spider-Man video, blah blah. And right above that Spider-Man 2 video, there's a link to the Vidme Forward, and if you're not familiar with that is, well, it's their answer to the YouTube Rewind, because we all know how good that was. But no, in all seriousness, I am getting a 1 second feature, and I know 1 second doesn't sound like a lot, but everybody included in the video only gets 1 second, so I'm getting the same amount of screen time that anybody else would get. And that should be up the day before this video comes out. This is Solid Steak. Remember to, you know, like, subscribe, follow on Twitter, and I will catch you on the flip side.